Hi, it's Deborah Hamilton, and today we're going to talk with Greg Bishop. He's a doctor of veterinary medicine. He's a relief vet, and he also has a wonderful website called Sasquatch Paw, where you can read his articles about communication and his wonderful cartoons depicting scenarios in veterinary medicine that will make you laugh, but also make you think. So let's hear what Greg has to say now. Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton. Welcome to my podcast, Why Do Pets Matter? 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict. Hi, everyone. I'm here with Greg Bishop. He is really one of my dearest friends. I'm going to let him tell you about what he's doing. And then, of course, I'll ask him our one question. So, Greg, thank you so much for being on Why Do Pets Matter?
Happy to be here.
And tell us what you're doing, because you're doing so many things. You're a cartoonist, you're a prolific writer, and you're really trying to help the veterinary industry be the best they can be.
I am just flailing and trying to enjoy it. That's the best description I could come up with.
Okay, so we're going to start with our question. Why do pets matter to you?
To me, pets matter because they are a connection. It's the human-animal bond. It's the most accessible human-animal bond that most of us have, in this type of culture that we live in. And that human-animal bond is really important for us because it grounds us in where we're from, who we are, the things that are really important in life. Dogs, cats, these are the animals I'm most familiar with, have a really beautiful way of living life that we could emulate more. And I think for people that have pets, it's really, really a great reminder that we don't have to be stuck in this hyper cerebral, hyper competitive, hyper anxious, worried state all the time. We've got a better example of how to live a more pure, present in the moment life. And that's where we're from. That's I think the way to live a good life. And I think to share a totally different way of being within your own home is just it's great. It's wonderful. We're extraordinarily lucky that there's
Animals want to live
animals.
with us, right?
Yeah.
So you're a veterinary you're a doctor of veterinary medicine, which I love, and you're a relief vet, but you also do these wonderful cartoons that sort of depict different stories. Tell me a little bit about how you got into drawing those cartoons, because I absolutely love them.
I've always drawn since I was a kid. I had little cartoon series and would just sort of idolize Gary Larson's The Far Side and Bill Watterson's Calvin and Hobbes. And so I just loved the idea of drawing these stories, these gags, and for as long as I can remember, I'd be doing stuff like that. In college, my notes were just doodles and silly things, and then when I was in vet school, I started to draw some more cartoons, really focusing more on just specifically animals and science. And then in the last few years, I've been really trying to develop that as a craft. Getting very serious about these silly little drawings. I think they're a wonderful way to highlight what's going on and to reach an audience. We're social media, internet, whatever, we have very little attention. A cartoon is a quick way that you can provide some insight and tell a little story and give some humor and sort of shed some light on some of these areas of our profession that are difficult. And I think humor, I'm always drawn to humor. I really love the idea of this sort of brain pathway that is fearful, and you can sort of take the off ramp by laughing at it in an appropriate way, in a sensitive and healing way. So yeah, I've been submitting non-veterinary cartoons to the New Yorker for a little over a year, but really trying to develop these veterinary cartoons to get them out to an audience of colleagues and people in the realm of veterinary medicine, because I just love the format, and I think it's wonderful if people are enjoying it.
It really expresses the feelings behind what you're experiencing as a veterinarian. And I have to say that as a pet owner, I find them to be on point as well, and quite helpful in understanding how the vet is feeling. So I love the audience of veterinary medicine. However, I think the audience of pet owners would benefit as well, because it really is helpful to understand how people feel, how things are going on, what they're feeling. Because even though, as Calvin and Hobbes always brought across some really important message in a way that was not confrontational,
Yeah.
that's what I find with your cartoons. You bring across something for people to think about in a way that is, at first very funny, and you just go, haha. And then you go, wow, this is really important for us to reflect on. Is this how we talk about it? And is this how it's seen by others? And what can we do to, help everyone? Because veterinary medicine is really now a practice and a profession that is in a bit of turmoil because of the changes that have come.
We need healing. I fully believe art is a really important expression, and it's such a in some ways it's a small niche community, but it's so relevant. There's so many people where it matters a ton, and as pets become more humanized, the emotions, the intensity of everything gets higher and higher, and I feel like a lot of that gets added to us and in the profession. And it's the more that we have to deal with that in a healthy way, and again, I would say humor is the best possible avenue in a lot of senses. I try to use humor effectively in the clinic with clients, with staff. Is there anything better than just sharing a laugh with somebody? You're connecting, your brain feels better. You
get those endorphins.
You get your endorphins. You're taking something that feels bad and you're making it feel good. And it's just like, how could you not love that sort of clinical tool? And that's how I think about it.
It's so important, because also when you're writing, you really write in a way, because you've been a prolific writer about communication with clients, both on costs and on care and in spectrum of care, because those conversations aren't necessarily covered as effectively as we would like in vet school. And so I know as a lawyer, we were just talking about this on a podcast this afternoon, or actually a webinar we were working on, how lawyers are sent out into the world and said, good luck, you've passed the bar, now you can be a lawyer. And I'm like, I knew nothing, and I knew what I didn't know. And so veterinarians, I think, probably have a little bit of the same feeling, although they go to clinics, we don't even do that. Well, they do now in law, but when I went back in the Stone Age, when we had to look at books, we didn't have that. And so you went out there and it was sort of by the seat of your pants and hoped you didn't get disbarred before you got barred. But really having that conversation with clients is not a piece of the veterinary medical training that is embraced.
I started out college as a linguistics major because I just was really into language communication, how it works, how to translate between two things. And one of the things that I started to realize in vet school was we're learning all this very detailed, very specific language about medicine. And there are a lot of the same words that we use in your normal conversations with the normal people. But to me, it really felt like, okay, I'm learning a foreign language and I have to translate that. And that may be something that not every veterinarian realizes. Just when you're using a jargon word or not is could make the difference between establishing a connection, establishing rapport, providing the optimal healthcare for that patient. So I've been fascinated with it, and we sort of joke at some of the clinics where I work, like I ask for the most upset clients, the people that are the hardest to communicate with, because it's just fun. I'm like, can I do that? Like, can I talk to this person? I wonder, like, can I speak their language? So I'm totally drawn to that, and I think that's really different from a lot of my colleagues, but at the same time, it's just always made sense to me. This is translation. I love the idea of languages. I like learning about them. I like communicating. I love to see when somebody feels that that connection. I lived in a foreign country where I didn't hear my native language for months at a time. And then when you just have a conversation with somebody that could speak with you in an easy way, oh, you talk about endorphins, it's just like pure relaxation. So yeah, I'm completely fascinated with that. And that's where I look at what I'm doing in writing is, can I use storytelling or humorous cartoons to just can we just make a little neuronal connection here and here and establish a connection so that we can understand each other better, so we can all work together, because really we're all in it for the sake of the animals, and so much of the dysfunction in the profession is communication. I mean, it's the majority of what we do.
And I love that thought about going in with the toughest client. And what was going through my head when you were speaking is, I bet he asks curious questions. So tell me, Mrs. Hamilton, what's going on here? Tell me a little bit about it, because I'm just coming in and even if she yelled at you and said, "Why didn't Dr. Smith tell you?" and say, "I know it's frustrating." And I really appreciate you taking one more minute to just fill me in on how you're feeling and what happened. And then I always say, if you could put a very colorful roll of duct tape in your examining room so that you would remember to shut up, slap a piece over your face, either literally or figuratively, so you really let them talk
Yeah.
and don't finish their sentence. And I know that you and I talked before that often we finish our clients' sentences because we've heard them before. We've heard this before. And yet we shouldn't, because we haven't heard it from them before.
Yeah. They don't know you've heard it before. It's important to them, and that really is what you need to be doing. You need to be establishing the idea that you're on the same team. And if you just come in there paternalistic and say blah blah blah, here's what we're doing, good luck. It won't work. They'll seek somebody else. You're done. It's 100% we're on the same team. How can I help you? And there's a lot of people that will just say, what should I do? But there's so many people that just they want to tell you. And even if it seems extraneous, I mean, boy, when you start listening, people tell you
My
stuff.
neighbor told me. My
They
breeder told me, oh, the cursed breeders. Yes, the cursed breeders. And I have to tell you, I introduced myself at a conference once, and I said, I'm a lawyer and a breeder. How many of you think I'm your worst nightmare in the entire room? It was a vet conference, raised their hand. And I said, and you don't even know me.
Yeah. Yeah. Take a moment to listen. What's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is the client gets mad at you and leaves. I mean, that's probably the worst that's going to happen. They leave a bad review, whatever. What's more likely to have that happen if you just go in there and you start talking to them? Well, if you listen to them, I mean, the maddest client, if you just say, tell me more, and you keep saying, tell me,
Oh, that's my favorite statement. Oh,
yeah, it's there are times where I go like, okay, I know this client's mad. and we're doing a lot of curbside. So I'll be on the phone. I say, I know they're mad. I know they're upset. I'm going to get on the
And
phone.
they're at the curb, so they're even madder because they're at the curb.
Yeah, they're, and whatever, they have their own issues. Nobody's
Yeah.
perfect. I get mad too. But if I know in my head, I'm going to be on the phone for about 10 minutes, and almost no matter how upset they are, if I just listen for 10 minutes, they will be fine. Sometimes I'm listening, and I'm typing up notes, or I'm doodling a cat on a post-it note, but I'm still listening, I'm still active, and I'm staying calm and centered, and I'm just letting all of that stuff wash out. And then when it's gone from them, they're open because they feel heard and listened to, and they go, okay, all right, this guy's clearly not antagonizing me, clearly not trying to
Tell me I'm wrong.
telling me I'm wrong, squeeze money out of me, do whatever.
Whatever.
He's
Yeah.
just here to help, and
Just here
that's
to
a
listen to what I have to say. He actually listened because he told me, so what I heard you say, Deborah,
yeah,
was,
yeah.
and yeah, this is what you and I probably both teach when we speak at conferences, is that if you take a moment to just reflect back what they said, then they know you heard them.
And
And
they'll tell you exactly what
or they'll
they
correct themselves.
yeah, yeah, you give
So
them a
if they
chance.
sound like a terrible person, they'll go, oh no, that's not what I want the doctor to think I said.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're in a unique position too, because we know why they're there. They want help for their animal, and they may go about it in a way that's rude, abusive, whatever, but they really do want your help. And if
That's
you're
the thing you have in common, right? So you find the thing you have in
yeah,
common.
yeah,
Both of you want to get to point B, which is helping Fluffy.
yeah, exactly. And we got to work together, because I'm not going to go to their home and give the daily medications or do the injections. I need them to know here's what we're getting into, and here's what we got to do.
I know. And it's interesting because a lot of veterinarians, when I speak, and probably when you speak as well, have said, it really offends me when they bring in a ream of Dr. Google like this thick. And I go, I get it. I said, people come in with the law to me all the time. And I sit there and I go, why did I bother going to law school? I just could have read what Dr. Google or Google Esquire gave them. However, it gives them the opportunity to do something while they're waiting to see you and just
Yeah.
say thank you. You probably read all those articles anyway. And if you haven't, they might have been able to find you an article that actually is going to help you do something for this pet or another pet.
And if you have a client doing that, that tells you that client wants more information. So if you have a client that just shows up and says, I don't know why I'm here, my wife sent me, well, don't spend 15 minutes going into the pathophysiology of renal failure with them. But if you have a client that prints out a stack of that, say, okay, I can spend a little more time going in this. I can follow up with some links to some more trusted information. But they have shown you their hand, and in that analogy of what they want. They want more information. They are going to feel better if they have this information. So now that you know that, try to satisfy that desire, and do it in a way that's helpful. And none of this stuff is perfect or easy, but people are really telling you what they want with their communication, and try to match what they want in the best way that you can.
As you were talking, I'm sitting there, I'm saying, yes, this is absolutely the perfect world. And I know that as a relief vet, you go to different practices and help them do this. And you bring a phenomenal skill that might not be a skill that they are good in their practice. Yet some of the practices give someone 5 or 10 minutes in each room. And if somebody wants to ask a lot of questions, that in and of itself could be a source of anger because, Dr. Bishop is just coming and going out and, I got my 5 minutes and that's it.
Yeah.
And how do we cope with that? Because I know that there are some practices that do need to, for lack of a better word, I probably should use a better word, but, churn clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think veterinary medicine in the modern era is just, it's a practice in realism. This is the situation. This is what you're dealing with. You either think you can thread this needle or you can't. And if you can't, it's totally okay to admit it. Say, I'm sorry. I have another patient waiting. I wish that I could, express the desire. I wish I could help you this or that. And if you're in one of those clinics and that is a problem for you, well, you need to seek somewhere else to be. if you are happy to do that, say, look, I'm going to come in, I'm going to see a ton of clients, I'm going to benefit them. It won't be perfect. I'll come in and I'll just do some quick hits, and we'll focus on the major things, but we'll do a big volume of that. And on the whole, that will lift the healthcare of this population of animals. Well, that's fine too. Tell yourself whatever story it is about how you're helping, but don't tell yourself the story that you have to provide the absolute perfect idea of what you think is optimal for every single situation, because you can't, and we all know that. I mean, I wrote a post about this. I had a wellness exam on a cat, 6-year-old cat. Woman and her daughter, 12-year-old daughter, brought this cat in. 6-year-old cat's exam was perfect. Everything looked great. And this, if you've been in the field for a while, you know that there are young cats with occult heart disease that can throw a clot, and it's a highly fatal condition. It happens in a moment. Well, I had just finished listening to the cat, no heart murmur, starting to talk to them about some wellness preventative stuff. This cat went into cardiac arrest in front of the mother and her little girl.
Oh my
And I
God.
did day practice, and I rushed the cat out. We start doing CPR. I mean, it went from everything looks great, clean bill of health, quote unquote, to we are
Triage.
failing, we have no chance. And it was awful. It was emotionally traumatic for this poor little girl. But what I felt like my job was, in addition to, hey,
Saving the cat.
let's
Right.
do CPR, was we need to leave this little girl with a story of how this is not as horrible as it seems, that this cat was loved, that this cat had a loving family, that unfortunately sometimes very hard things can happen. But I'm always trying to leave my clients with a positive story when they leave. And that situation was the most extreme, intense, difficult story that I had to try and leave them with. It doesn't matter. I'm trying, and I'm being there, and I'm empathetic, and I'm listening, and I'm trying to explain that sometimes these terribly, terribly unfortunate things happen, but that doesn't take away the love that they shared with that animal in their home. And so, yeah, that was a pretty intense
Putting
one.
that out there is so important because, in this instance, if they have this underlying issue that nobody would know until it happened, and then thank God it didn't happen at home and they had to rush it in, and then they would have definitely, and who would have known that the cat was fine one minute and wasn't? I mean,
Yeah,
it was a blessing that it happened where the cat could get immediate care, which is
yeah,
so important, and finding a veterinarian who would say, at this point, this was a little bit of a time bomb. We all have time bombs in our bodies. I mean, people have brain aneurysms and things, and
yeah,
nobody knows when or how, and they don't really pop up all the time until they pop up, and then and then hopefully you're near medical care. But that was a wonderful story to tell her that, he lived the 6 years, and 23 minutes till the day, his number was up, um, being loved and fed and cared for. And that's got to be something that is really important for a veterinarian to share. I know, I had a veterinarian, my dog had osteosarcoma and broke her femur. And everyone wanted me to cut her leg off, because she was 9 and she was fine. There was no cancer anywhere else. And I said to him, could you wait 24 hours, give her a fentanyl patch and she'll be not in so much pain. But I want to think about it. And he did. And when I decided not to cut her leg off and to let her go, he came out and said to me, he probably was your twin brother. He came out and said to me, what you did was a choice of bringing home the Daisy you brought in, or bringing home the Daisy that would be Daisy without a leg. He said, and you chose bringing home the Daisy you brought in. He said, and I don't have a problem with that. He said,
yeah,
because it is always up to the owner who they want to bring home. If you had done the surgery, it wouldn't have been Daisy you brought home. It would be Daisy with 3 legs. And I
yeah,
thought that was such, and I wrote him and I wrote the Animal Medical Center and told them that was the most impactful statement at that moment in my life, that I chose her, who she was,
yeah,
over me wanting her to stay another year or so, because osteosarcoma sucks.
yeah.
That, because I couldn't let her go.
Well, and it And it's really, I think, our job to advocate for the animal, and that does not mean, yeah, let's amputate my leg, or yeah, I want to go do this therapy or that therapy. It means think about it honestly from their perspective and realize that this animal is not thinking, I hope I get 6 more months. The animal is thinking day to day, my job is to be happy. And it's so important to weigh the emotional toll of medical care on animals. Unfortunately, just a wellness visit to a vet is a terrifying thing for the majority of our patients.
Yeah,
And
hopefully they're not used to it because they go so often, but in the flip side, then they're not used to it and they hate it when they go.
yeah, yeah, and we do our best. Fear free is great, but it's
Yeah.
not fear free. It's fear reduced with fear
It's not
mitigation.
perfect. It's
Yeah,
better.
yes,
Absolutely. And Marty's a good friend of mine, and I'm on the advisory board of Fear Free, and it's better because you are making outward gestures to help the pet not be so triggered by
yeah,
I mean, in cats, I think it's almost impossible not to make them triggered because unless they're outdoor cats, and I don't know, I think it's either or, it's hard for them to be in that kind of situation. Dogs get crated more often and,
yeah.
could, especially show dogs who go everywhere and they stand there and don't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. But we got it. We have to be honest about their experience. Hey, we're doing all this stuff. Take an honest moment to think about it from your animal's perspective, and letting them go is not a tragedy. It can be sad. It can be very difficult and painful for you, but you have to remember you do not think the same way that animals think. And so just be fair to them, be really fair, and they will never judge you because they just are only capable of love, and they'll never ask you and they'll never shame you. They just trust you. And
To
we deal
make
with
the
that a
decision
lot.
that's best for both of you. Because sometimes, there is the ability to, give shots or do something, and I just know that I can't, right? Because I'm the pet owner and I know I just can't do it. I'm afraid of needles or whatever it is. Then that's not something that you can do. And maybe you can look toward a vet tech who you could pay to come and do it for you so that you could do it. But maybe it's just, okay, I'm just gonna let you go. I'm putting up a podcast, I think next week, by Mary Beth Decker, who is an intuitive who, speaks with animals, which you might think is a little wacky, but I totally think my dogs talk to me all the time, but that's another story, and we'll talk about that. You'll make a cartoon about that. Uh,
Yeah.
but she said that once we get a pet and we both become enamored with each other, right? The pet loves you almost upon seeing you. There's hardly any pets who don't like their owners. um and they sort of give you she said, a power of attorney over their lives.
Yeah. That's a
and
that's a great way to put it.
and she said, they know you're going to do whatever is best for them because you love them.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, that's what it gave me huge peace. And that's how I feel. I want to make sure that they know they're loved every minute of the day, and I want to minimize any pain and suffering that might come their way, if I can. If there's a way to have a week, say abdominal surgery, which none of us want, human or animal, but it's a week of yuckies, and then they can be on the mend. What you might do for a 5-year-old dog, you wouldn't necessarily do for a 14-year-old dog. Go ahead.
That brings back the importance of I mean, really the fiduciary duty, but also understanding the human psychology of what you're dealing with. And in the ER, it's very intense because you're dealing with a 10-year-old golden retriever with a tumor on its spleen that's ruptured, and you got to have this conversation. Okay, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure? And a lot of people, all they hear is, well, there's an option to save my dog. Well, but what does that mean? And having that conversation, having it in a rushed way is very, very difficult. It's a tightrope to walk. But I mean, it scars me when I have those go the wrong way, when I see an animal suffer and there's a complication with surgery. It's awful, and I took an oath to prevent and relieve suffering. So to me, it's of the utmost importance to say, no, we need to be on the same page. I need you to know what you're getting into. You're going to tell me as honestly as you can what you think is the right call, because yeah, you have the power of attorney. You're making the decision. You're the grown up here. And that is just like, it's all got to come together for it to work out. And it's really, really an emotional toll when it doesn't, and there's pain for the animal, for me, for the team that I'm working with, and for the owner. So it's just, I just think it's 100% the most critical skill you have in those moments.
I have to thank you, because that's like the most important piece of information I impart on most of the people that I speak to. I'm hoping that they work to get it right over being right. This is what I would do in this situation until you're in that situation. And then maybe the facts you find in that situation lead you to do something you would never have thought you had done in that situation, but you want to get it right for the animal. I mean, that's the bottom line. All of you want to get it right for the animal. That's why the discussions that have to be had in a way that are respectful and collaborative and curious. What can you do? What can you afford? And, no commenting or criticism or feelings of judgment if somebody can't do something.
Yeah. And there are a lot of patients that we have where they are suffering. I mean, this is my opinion. I think there are animals who are genuinely suffering due to their owner, guardian, caretaker's inability to deal with some emotional trauma issues, whatever. And so I do look at it as part of my job. I say, okay, I recognize this, I recognize that. What's the best way? Shaming them, judging them? Absolutely not. It's making them feel I'm on their team. It's addressing that there is a need here, but it's also helping them see the outcome, which is this animal is now suffering a lot. And you might think there's all these different options, but the reality, again, coming back to just dealing with reality, the reality is there's not. And if this person doesn't trust you, you're asking to go deep into their mind, into their trauma, into their vulnerabilities to help this animal. Well, that's a skill that you just don't learn in vet school. It's hard. It's really, really difficult to do that. And that is something that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring that mentality of, let's look at the owner as a fully equal team member to us that unfortunately just doesn't know any of the medicine, and why would they? But good communication is the way that we will lock in, and that will optimize the well-being of this animal.
Yeah, and that's really what all of you want to do. I love that. And I'm going to end on that because that's such a beautiful statement, is to make sure we always keep in focus the well-being of the animal, start to finish. And in this day and age where communication is not necessarily long enough, is not necessarily curious enough, you are here doing a yeoman's job. Greg, let everybody know where they can read your articles. I know you're on LinkedIn, and I know your artwork's on LinkedIn. Is that the only place they can find you, Greg Bishop, on LinkedIn?
You can, yeah, you can. I post a lot on there, but I've got a website which is just sasquatchpaw.com. So there's a weekly article. There's usually illustrations, and I've got all of my veterinary cartoons on there too. So that's the main hub for
I
my
love
stuff.
Sasquatch. That's because you're out there in the Pacific Northwest, who just had the
Yes.
cyclone. I hope you were nowhere near it.
I didn't know till the next day that it had hit us. So it was not a big event here. Bomb
Oh,
cyclone.
good. Good. It was a big event here on the East Coast, considering we were watching the swaths. So I'm so glad you're fine. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad that you've taken the time to speak with me and educate my audience. And until next time, everyone, kiss your pet for me, because why do pets matter? Because they love us unconditionally. Thanks so much.